Good morning, guys. Happy Sunday. Okay, today's discussion A is end of life doulas. We're going to discuss what they do for patients at the end of life. So here we go with today's discussion. End of life doulas consistently emphasize a few core truths about death, dying, and grief. Truths meant to reduce fear, normalize the emotional landscape, and help families feel less alone. The core message: death is a human process, not just a medical one. End of life doulas describe their work as companionship, comfort, and guidance for people who are dying and for the loved ones who are grieving. Their support is non medical and centers on emotional, spiritual, and practical care. They see their role as parallel to birth doulas. Birth doulas usher life in, death doulas help usher life out. What doulas want you to know about grief? Your grief responses are normal. Doulas repeatedly stress that people need reassurance that their grief, whether it show up as anger, resentment, depression, numbness, or confusion, is normal. People want to be seen and heard in those emotions not fixed. Grief begins before death. Many families experience anticipatory grief long before the final moment. Doulas help normalize this and guide families through the emotional and logistical challenges that arise as death approaches. Grief is not linear. Doulas emphasize that grief doesn't follow a t- uh, tidy timeline. It moves in waves, and people often oscillate between loss oriented emotions and restoration oriented tasks, something supported by bereavement research and reflected in doula practices. What doulas want you to know about the dying process? Dying is a natural transition. Just as the body knows how to be born, doulas say the body also knows how to die. This perspective helps families understand that death is not a failure of care, but a natural process. Presence matters before Presence matters more than perfection. Doulas emphasize that What dying people often want most is presence. Someone calm, compassionate, and and unhurried. They help families show up in ways that feel grounded rather than overwhelming. Death is more than medical care. Doulas focus on emotional, spiritual, and practical support, life review, and legacy projects, vigil planning, advocacy for people, advocacy for the person's wishes, helping families understand what to expect, coordinating non medical aspects of care. Education reduces fear. A major part of doula work is demystifying the physical signs of dying, changes in breathing, appetite, responsiveness, so families feel less afraid and more prepared. What doulas want families to remember: you don't have to do this alone. Many families feel overwhelmed by caregiving, grief, and logistics. Doulas step in as steady companions who can hold space, guide conversations, and help families navigate decisions. Your presence can soften suffering. Doulas don't remove pain or grief, but they help soften it, creating a sense of safety, meaning, and connection around the dying person. Death can be meaningful, even beautiful. Many doulas describe death as a profound human moment, one that can be filled with storytelling, rituals, music, touch, and love. When families are supported, death doulas, compassionate companions at end of life. Death doulas, sometimes called end of life doulas or death midwives, provide non medical companionship, practical support, and emotional care for people who are dying and their families. Their work centers on presence, dignity, and meaning, helping people and their loved ones move through the final chapter with clarity, comfort, and connection. What death doulas what what a death doula does, core core rules, core role, companion, sit with the dying person, hold space, and and offer calm, attentive presence, guide, explain common physical and emotional changes during dying, so families feel less frightened. Advocates help ensure the person's wishes are heard and respected in conversations with clinicians and family. Practical helper, assist with visual planning, legacy projects, letters, music, and small household tasks. Bereavement support, provide early grief support and referrals to counselors, support groups, or spiritual care. Non medical scope, death doulas do not provide clinical care, such as medication administration or medical decision making. Their expertise is in emotional, spiritual, cultural, and practical support that complements hospice and clinical teams. How how doulas support the dying person? Presence over performance, being reliably present, listening without trying to fix everything, creating comforts, using touch, breath work, music, rituals, or storytelling tailored to the person's needs. Meaning work, facilitating life reviews, recording stories, or helping create legacy objects and messages. Ritual or ritual and cultural sensitivity, honoring honoring religious, cultural, or personal rituals that make the moment meaningful. How does how doulas support families and caregivers? Normalizing emotions, validating anger, relief, guilt, numbness, and other grief responses. Education, explaining what to expect physically and behaviorally as death approaches. Practical coaching, suggesting ways to be present, how to manage vigil shifts, and how to communicate with clinicians. Aftercare, offering early bereavement conversations, resources, and referrals to grief specialists. Common misconceptions. Misconception, doula hastens death or prolonged death. Reality, doulas support comfort and dignity. They do not intervene medically or alter the biological process. Misconception, doulas replace hospice or palliative care. Reality, doulas complement clinical teams by addressing emotional, spiritual, and practical needs. Misconception, doulas are only for the terminally ill at home. Reality, doulas work in hospitals, hospice facilities, nursing homes, and private residences. Practical tips from doulas for families. Talking about Talking about wishes early, simple conversations about values and preferences reduce confusion later. Learn the common signs of dying, changes in breathing, appetite, and consciousness are often normal and not always distressing. Prioritizing presence. Short, calm visits are often more meaningful than long, anxious ones. Accept help. Allow friends, clergy, or doulas to share tasks so caregivers can rest. Document memories. Record stories, voice messages, or letters while the person, still, person can still participate. What to consider hiring a death doula when the family wants to when the family wants non-medical companionship and guidance, when the dying person or family seeks help with legacy work, rituals, or vigil planning, when caregivers are overwhelmed and need coaching on presence, pacing, and self-care, when cultural or spiritual practices require sensitive facilitation, ethical and cultural considerations, consent and boundaries. Doulas work with explicit consent of the dying person and family and respect, confidentiality, and autonomy. Cultural humanity. Effective doula asks about the about and honor cultural, religious, and personal practice rather than assuming a one size fits all approach. Trauma sensitivity. Doulas are mindful that past trauma can shape how people experience dying and grief. The implication or the impact doulas describe. Doulas often report that their presence helps reduce fear, create calmer vigils, and open space for meaningful conversations. Families frequently say they felt more supported, less alone, and better able to remember the person who died rather than the chaos of the final day. Quick references and next steps. If you're planning, write down the person's values and few practical wishes, music, visitors, rituals. If you're grieving, allow yourself varied emotions. Seek a doula, counselor, or support group for early support. If you're curious, looking for local death doula networks, hospice volunteer programs, or community workshops on end of life planning. Okay, guys, that is your A for this morning. I will be back on later tonight for more shows. For now, Gator Wellness, take care, folks.